One of Europe's largest minorities faces renewed persecution as the Italian government threatens to expel Roma from the country. Could thousands really be forced out? I'm Emmerson Mnangagwa, and today's newsmaker is Italy's Roma community. The Roma have been discriminated against for centuries, and that persecution seems alive and well in Italy today, with senior members of the government describing them as beggars and thieves. But Interior Minister Matteo Salvini wants to go a step further. He's announced plans to count the country's Roma and expel any who aren't Italian nationals. And if you take a look at his social media feeds, he'd probably prefer to evict them all. But despite his aggressive stance, actually making it happen won't be easy. The Italian constitution forbids any discrimination based on race. So, what's really behind Salvini's anti-Roma rhetoric? We sent Sandra Gutman to Italy to find out.
Roma people in Italy, as in many parts of Europe, tend to be stereotyped as a traveling ethnic minority from the East, trying to make money from tourists. It's also a community often linked to poverty and crime, a stigma they've struggled to shake for decades. But life for them here might get even tougher. Italy's new Interior Minister, Matteo Salvini, is on a mission to stop illegal immigration and has his sights on the Roma. He suggested a census for Roma people living in camps and wants to deport illegal residents. As for the others, well, he hasn't tried to hide his contempt.
I Rom italiani, purtroppo te li devi tenere in Italia perché non li puoi espellere.
For some, the idea brings back a dark history. In the 1930s, Italy's fascist dictator Benito Mussolini rounded up thousands of Roma to send to concentration camps. In 2008, the Interior Minister at the time, Roberto Maroni, tried to bring in a mass fingerprinting of Roma living in camps, a plan that was widely criticized as ethnic cataloging. Today, experts say Italy's constitution prevents Salvini from reviving a Roma census. But on the far right, the idea could be seen as somewhat popular.
There's no question that Salvini's anti-immigrant rhetoric has been paying off politically. One poll says that support for his party, La Lega, has shot up by nearly 14% just in the last 3 months.
Coincidence or not, this Roma camp on the outskirts of Rome was raided by police a week ago.
So this from an authorized camp, no, it just turned to be an abusive camp, illegal camp.
Overnight?
Yes.
Around 80 people out of more than 400 residents were forced out and left homeless. The local council said their caravans were public property, but instead of seizing them, they were destroyed.
It's a crime if you enter here.
It's a crime to go back into
yes.
the caravan, okay. And where is the family now?
Questo devono portare via.
Dov'è la famiglia?
La famiglia non lo so dove sta, stanno fuori da dormire.
They went away.
Is this normal though? Is this how they get rid of Roma families in camps? Has this been happening for years?
Yes, absolutely.
This is nothing new?
No, nothing new.
Women and children were offered emergency shelter, but not the men.
Poi ho fatto rifiuto per questa cosa che mi hanno accettato, mi volevano mettere senza marito con 3 bambini minorenni, senza marito, e chi mi aiuta lì? Pure questo adesso ce l'ho una settimana.
Me lo date a vivere in un altro posto, sotto al ponte, con loro nel centro accoglienza.
Italy's new government has pledged to dismantle dozens of camps across the country. They've also outlined plans to separate Roma children who are out of school from their parents.
I don't know. Only from Roma? If the Italian families are not sending children at school, which is about, in some region, 10%, you know, for them the punishment is...
They won't be separated.
Okay, so this is absolutely racist.
But life in a camp is not the reality for most of Italy's more than 150,000 Roma people. We headed to Pescara, a city with the highest concentration of Roma Italians. Most people here live in social housing blocks like this. Our local guide told us that drug dealing is an issue here. In a different neighborhood, we meet Attilio Spinelli. He used to be a truck driver, but lost his job after an injury. Finding work since has been a struggle.
Quando uno cerca un lavoro cerca sempre di nascondere la sua etnia, proprio per appena sentono un cognome un po' diverso, viene subito additato che quello è un Rom. Allora il Rom non ha diritto di lavorare. Io personalmente, di 7 generazioni italiane, di mamma, di papà, nonni, bisnonni, che hanno fatto anche la seconda guerra mondiale per difendere la patria. Noi siamo realmente integrati, non siamo né sporchi né cattivi, però sentirci definiti così, che purtroppo ci devono mantenere, noi non abbiamo fatto nulla di male per fargli qualcosa di male a lui e ci sentiamo disprezzati, non va bene.
I met La Lega's counselor in Pescara, who supports his leader Salvini and his focus on the Roma community.
Does Salvini have a problem with Roma people?
Io credo che abbia fatto bene il Ministro dell'Interno a sollevare il problema della comunità Rom, perché penso che in questo Paese ci sia necessità di ristabilire i termini della giusta legalità. Ma è un censimento che io non credo debba essere inteso come una schedatura, è un censimento che credo debba essere intesa come invece una conoscenza concreta e precisa di chi abita le nostre città, che cosa fa sul nostro territorio.
But you can see how when Salvini says it's a shame we can't kick out the legal Italian Roma citizens, that sounds like outright racism.
Se fosse così noi dovremmo ripercuotere questo problema su tutte le comunità che vivono nel nostro Paese. Evidentemente se ciò accade solo per alcune situazioni, per alcune comunità, è perché evidentemente la percezione che il cittadino italiano ha del comportamento di queste comunità non è proprio la stessa rispetto ad altre, nei confronti di tutti, ma soprattutto nei confronti delle comunità Rom, che spesso invece tendono a far frequentare le scuole dai propri ragazzi. Sono convinto che non ci sia un problema di razzismo. È un problema di lotta alla criminalità.
You talk about crime being a problem, but surely Italy has even bigger problems with the mafia, for instance.
Il ministro Salvini ha parlato tanto di lotta alla mafia, quindi questo è un problema che probabilmente i giornali tendono a minimizzare, ma non è così.
But one man in Pescara is fighting back. He's trying to sue Salvini.
Abbiamo presentato una denuncia per istigazione all'odio razziale verso Salvini perché con le sue dichiarazioni ha discriminato una significativa delle persone appartenenti alle comunità romanesi in Italia. Sappiamo che Salvini può avvalersi dell'immunità parlamentare, lo sappiamo, no? Non è che sia molto... però lo deve fare e ci deve dimostrare che la legge non è uguale per tutti. Abbiamo capito un dato fondamentale, che bisogna lavorare sullo sviluppo delle comunità. Io sono sposato con una donna non rom e vedo che spesso andiamo in crisi perché mia moglie è abituata da buona italiana a fare la formichina, no? Prendi lo stipendio oggi e spendi 10 oggi, 10 domani, 10 dopodomani. Io da rom prendo lo stipendio oggi, me lo consumerei tutto oggi, domani un altro giorno. Bisogna saper coniugare queste due cose e farle convivere insieme.
Well, joining me now from Rome is Salvini's advisor, Guglielmo Picchi. He's the Foreign Affairs Secretary with the ruling Lega Party. In Milan, we have actor and Roma rights activist Diana Pavlovic. And completing our panel is Valerio Bordonaro. He's an advisor to the former centre-left Prime Minister Enrico Letta. I thank you all for joining us on the Newsmakers. Guglielmo Picchi, let me start with you. You have Salvini's ear. He's made his position clear on the Roma. Do you have a problem with the Roma?
We don't have any problem with the Roma. The only issue is that we would like to know how many there are present on our territory if they send their children to school, if they have an adequate level of life in terms of security, of sanitation, and all the other things that people living in our country should have. This is the only issue that we have with Roma communities eventually living in our territory. And furthermore, we would like to know their exact number.
Okay. Diana, is that acceptable to you?
No, because we have the problem with the Italian government in this moment, because, you know, the government were not speaking about research on the conditions on life of Roma or some kind of research on the number of Roma. The government were speaking about census, and we have the proof, because now in region Lombardia, the regional council approved ethnic census, ethnic profiling of Roma. So we have all informations, and the government have all informations they want. We are more than half Italian citizens. We are in the normal national registers. We have IDs and everything else. The rest are European citizens, Romanian, most of all, and they are also registered in the territories there where they live. So there is no need to make ethnic profiling. I mean, it is enough to speak with municipalities and with police also, and to know all the conditions of all Roma in Italy. So I think this section of our government now is simply the propaganda, just to say to Italians that they want to be very hard with Roma, and they think they can win or earn some votes on this, or
so let me,
consensus.
Certainly, let me go to Valerio. Valerio, is it clear that this is ethnic profiling and persecution of the Roma, or does Salvini have a point that he just wants to take a bit of a registry and get more information?
Well, I pose a rhetoric question. Why talking about an ethnic census? Why he could have said, I want to enforce the rule of law in every corner of the country. That was a fair thing to say while he's talking about the Roma. The point is that Salvini wants to talk politics instead of policies. And that's the point. He's continuing his campaign, and that's it. There's no real purpose behind this policy, because this is not even a policy. It's just campaigning, and again, campaigning. So no real purpose behind, just campaigning again.
Okay, so Guglielmo, is that what you guys are doing? You're throwing raw meat to the nationalists, and you just want to whip up a little bit of anti-immigrant or anti-Roma fever in the country with no end game. Is that what you're doing?
I mean, I want to be honest with my two interlocutors and to the people listening to us. Here there is no ethnic profiling whatsoever. Italy has the unique case of a number of illegal camps throughout the country. We would like to know who is living in those camps. If there are people of Roma origin, fine, we will verify this. We are not discriminating at all on any ethnic whatsoever. We want to know if these people are legally living in our country, their condition, if they are legally sending the people, their children to school. I remember that already a number of center-left municipalities throughout the country made a census of the people living in those camps. I think it's time to put together all this data and to have a clear idea of what is the rate of scholarization of their children, the rate of eventually people being Italian citizens, or other foreign nationals, in order to have the case made clear so that there is not any more illegal camps throughout our territory.
And I know that you've been clearing camps as well. At the end of June, many camps were flattened and cleared. Estimated 450 people were cleared. I know this is happening. I know this is according to the law. But let me ask you, were Salvini's true intentions revealed by his offhand comments about the fact that actually even those who are legally Italian citizens, he wishes that he could kick them out of the country? Is that at the heart of it? You're trying to play by the rules right now, but at the heart of it, you just want to get rid of them, right?
No, I mean, this is really not what we want to do. I mean, we want to be clear. I'm a father. If I don't send children to school, I will lose the right to have my children. This is what we want to achieve with the people living in these illegal camps. If you are living from illegal activities, you should not stay in our country. So it's really having the rule of law working. We want to put in practice. We don't want to deport anyone, but if you don't have any right to stay in our country, why you should stay in the country?
Okay.
Simply
okay.
being repatriated where you're from.
Okay,
So,
Diana, you're shaking your head in disagreement. Tell me why.
Because this is nonsense. Because our kids are going to school for a lot of time. They are going to school. The only thing that forbids them
not
to go
what
to
municipalities
school
are
the
doing.
forced.
I mean,
no, our kids are going to school. When they don't go to school, it is because they are evicted. One day yes, and one day no. You know, only in Milan, just to say the numbers, only in Milan there were one vice mayor that spent 8 million of euro on forced evictions on 105,000 people that are going around Milan, and they're all Romanian citizens. They could not be thrown out from the country. They're living in the slums also now. But the mayor, vice mayor, were going there and evict them one day yes and one day no, and they're just moving to another place. So economic resources were spent, public money was spent, just to go there with the bulldozer and break those small slum they were building. The kids could not go to school, and that's why they don't go to school, because the evictions forbid them to go to school. And you know, the social costs, psychological costs of these kids are so huge that you cannot even imagine what is for them to live 10 or 15 evictions. As we know, I know the kids that are living these kind of things. So if you are father, if all you are parents, all of you, and you care about our kids, just stop to evict them. This would be the first great thing to make them go to school, because they want to go to school. And their parents want to send them to school. They're poor.
Why all these minors are around begging in the city center of city? I mean, listen, there is plenty of people who have been minors being arrested in the centers of our cities, being sent as beggars. This is the reality. I mean, if we want to continue to hide
they're begging because they have to eat, and nobody, there is no institutions. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I need to tell you something. Nobody likes to go to beg, and nobody likes to bring the kid to beg. When the people are begging, is because they don't have other possibility to eat every day. And if you care about this, then you think about policies of social inclusion. That's what we are asking for so long time. We did not invent the camps. Roma did not invent the camps. The institutions, Italian institutions, invented Roma camps. And we are under institutional segregations for 20 years. So please, if you want to understand how to help our kids, please stop evict and think about policies, inclusion policies, and think about the job for their parents, think about housing issue for their parents, and how we can solve this problem. Okay. And we know we have some proposals, but you don't want to listen to us.
Okay, Guglielmo, why aren't you listening?
To manipulate this situation.
Okay, Guglielmo.
It's years that the left-wing's administration throughout Italy, I mean, leftist people
don't say
living in the camps, and no social inclusion whatsoever.
From 2008,
no,
it
this
was
is
the right
reality.
wing.
The citizen, I mean, listen,
Maroni,
in Rome,
which was the Minister of Interior,
Florence,
it was the Lega minister, just invented the first census, you know? In 2008, Maroni, when he was the Minister of Interior, he invented the first ethnic profiling of Roma. If you remember, you know, fingerprints also for
there
kids.
There is no ethnic profiling whatsoever. There is no ethnic profiling
why then in region Lombardia, the regional council approved the ethnic profiling? I mean, we have the document that was approved in the regional council.
There's no ethnic profiling whatsoever.
In Lombardia,
there is
we have
no
the document.
Ethnic profiling whatsoever. There is no ethnic profiling
then,
whatsoever.
Lega, please,
in any case, we are speaking of the central
government. Let me bring in Valerio
then.
Okay, so Guglielmo and Diana, let me just sort of park that off for a second and bring in Valerio. Valerio, for those of us from the outside who might look at this issue and put it in the same basket as this new government saying no to the Aquarius, refusing it to dock and possibly even leaving those people for dead if they hadn't been accepted by the Spanish, and seeing some of the rhetoric as a wolf whistle for something more sinister. Is that fair, or are we mixing issues?
Well, you know, I say again the same thing as before. This government is not talking about policies, it's just talking politics. And you can understand easily the difference. So they're doing spot measures. Talking about the Roma is just to have a few titles more. No one would talk about a government saying we will enforce the rule of law in every corner of the country. We will provide equal opportunities for all our citizens. This is not sexy. So let's talk about the Roma and let all the media networks and the newspaper talking about that. And we are following them exactly as they wanted us to do. You see, and the same is for Aquarius. We refused a couple of boats to go to Italian harbor, but we are not fighting and tackling the problem of global migrations. That's a big issue, and we will not face it like that. But at the same time, we are giving room to Salvini and the Movimento 5 Stelle to get higher in the polls and to get the titles of newspaper and to get the media network talking about them. But we don't see policies, we just see politics.
Guglielmo, you have no policies, only politics.
Well, I mean, this is why we won the last elections, and this is the reason why we are polling so high as never before. I mean, there is a point in this. Eventually, I mean, the policies put in place by the previous governments and the local left-wing governments that, I mean, did all the stuff on the Roma were very ineffective. There is no such thing as a social inclusion of the Romas. I take the example of the city of Rome or the city of Florence, where illegal camps are present on the territory of the comune since 40, 50 years, and all the money spent by those councils to integrate the people, I mean, was a waste of public money. So maybe us is politics, but I mean, the policies put in place by others were totally ineffective. Here we made much ado really for nothing. It's fake news, all this ethnic profiling and other stuff. We want to close illegal camps, and this is exactly to put in practice the rule of law in every corner of the country.
Okay, rule of law in every corner of the country.
We said that.
Okay, Guglielmo, okay, just let me get a response from Diana. Diana, would you accept that what they're still doing, as unpalatable as it is, and I know you don't support this ruling alliance, what they're doing is still within the rule of law, and if they actually want to evict people and actually physically discriminate based on ethnicity, they can't, because you have to change the Italian constitution for that. So you still have a safeguard.
Yes, I mean, the sense any kind of ethnic profiling is illegal. It's not legal, so they can't do that. The only issue is that, of course, there are.
We are not doing the ethnic profiling. We are not doing the ethnic profiling. No. This is fake news.
Let me explain, because we are now in.
It's fake news.
Please, just let me explain.
And you made your point. Let's
just
get Diana
let me
to
explain.
Respond. Yeah.
It was like the words of our Minister of Interiors. Salvini said it in television. It is recorded. Now we have also in Lombardia, in the region where the Lega is governing, we have the document from the regional council that approves the census of Roma and Sinti, and this is ethnic profiling. I'm sorry to say, I mean, this is not me. I don't want ethnic profiling. If it was fake news, I would say it is fake news because I don't want Roma and Sinti all over Italy just to get upset and scared so much. But anyway, I mean, what I wanted to say, that the consequence of all this, even fake news if you want, the consequence is that all over Italy there are forced evictions without any kind of alternative solution. So what is happening is that the bulldozers arriving also to Italian citizens, also in regular camps given to the people by the municipalities, the bulldozers arriving and breaking the containers, breaking the property of the, or the property of the people of Roma and Sinti, and they said to them, just go away. We don't have nothing for you, just go away. They don't offer any kind of alternative solution. This is happening now, in this moment, in this region where I am, just 30 kilometers from Milan, and I'm watching it every single day, and the mayor is Lega Nord person, Lega person. So I also spoke with him, and I saw it. I saw this kind of intention. You just go there, break the people home. What you gave this home to the people 30 years ago. Now you go and break it and just say to people, go away. You know, right. I'm seeing now in these days 50 children, 50 kids that will remain in some weeks on the street
and I'm glad
without nothing.
I'm glad you're sharing this with us.
And this is the consequence.
Certainly, and I'm glad you're sharing this with us.
Thank you.
Valerio.
Thank you just to let me share to you.
Certainly. Valerio, let me ask you, are we seeing with this new alliance with La Lega and with the Five-Star Movement and whoever has the levers of power right now, are we going to be seeing more and more questions and question marks about who is Italian and what is a true Italian?
You know, this is unpredictable. I hope not. I hope we will not question ourselves who is Italian, but maybe we will ask ourselves who is European. You know, if we start looking for a national identity or national identities right now, we're going to make a big mistake. First of all, because nationalism has proven to be a negative thought, and secondly, because national identities could be richness for our country and for our European project, but they cannot be divisive. So I hope there will we will no question about it. But who knows? You know, I see the situation right now very similar to an indie rock song where they say, we are the angry mob. We like who we like, we hate who we hate, but we're also easily swayed. And the point is that, you know, we are angry, yes. We don't know exactly why we do things or why we don't do things, yes. But we are also easily swayed because we think to be well informed, but in the end we are not. And that's the situation right now, so it's unpredictable. I hope not.
Okay, and on those lyrics and that elegant answer, I will wrap up the debate. I thank you all for joining us here on the Newsmakers. Guglielmo Picchi, Diana Pavlovic, and Valerio Bordonaro. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Still to come on the Newsmakers, Zimbabwe's president says he's recovered millions of dollars in stolen funds. Is Emmerson Mnangagwa delivering on his campaign promises by tackling corruption? And veiled or jailed in Iran, we ask why a woman was sentenced to 20 years in prison for removing her headscarf. When Zimbabwe's president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, came to power, he promised to fight corruption and rebuild a troubled economy. And the man they call the crocodile says he's already had success. He announced his government had recovered $850 million that had been stolen from state funds. But not everyone is jumping on the Mnangagwa bandwagon. His critics say his claims are vague and that it's far too early to say he's lived up to any of his promises. For more, here's Christine Provalakis.
Zimbabwe has recovered $850 million in stolen state funds, stashed in foreign accounts. But it's still $550 million short. The president had warned people to return the cash by March or face prison.
Corruption remains the major source of some of the problems we face as a country, and its retarding impact on national development cannot be overemphasized. The goal of my government is to build a new Zimbabwe.
Emmerson Mnangagwa took over from Robert Mugabe after a military coup in November. Corruption was widespread under Mugabe, who negotiated his immunity from prosecution before leaving power. Mugabe left Zimbabwe with massive debts, a worthless currency, and 80% of Zimbabweans unemployed. Mnangagwa has promised to tackle a ruined economy.
My government is committed to open Zimbabwe up to investment by building a free and transparent economy which benefits Zimbabweans and is welcoming to outsiders.
The government has listed people who ignored the call to return the stolen money. But are threats enough to turn the country around? Christine Pirovolakis, The Newsmakers.
Let's go to our panel now, and joining me from London is the chairman of the UK chapter of Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF party, Nick Mnangagwa. And in Birmingham, we have political analyst Itai Michael Preston Choto. Gentlemen, I thank you very much for joining us here on the Newsmakers. Nick Mnangagwa, let me start with you. Okay, so $850 million recovered from an estimated stolen $1.4 billion. Zimbabwe is not a rich country. This is a lot of money. Credit where it's due. But let me ask you, can you honestly tell me that President Mnangagwa didn't know about this money, that this was all Mugabe, and that it's only as ZANU-PF is cleaning house now that this money was recovered?
The money was known by the banks, and well, the Reserve Bank had not communicated that to government, and it communicated to the new government when it came into place. Because when money leaves the country, the commercial banks in which accounts are held have to submit forms to the Reserve Bank, and then whatever people are buying or purchasing outside the country, the money goes out of the country. When the money goes out of the country, normally it goes out of the country as money for imports. What the bank monitors now is the return of those imports or the submission of those imports back into the country. When those imports do not come into the country, it means the money went out as a ploy for externalization rather than for purchasing that particular item or importing those particular goods. So this is how most of the money went out. So what happened in terms of tracking this or collecting these figures is that people just compared what came back into the country and what did not come back. And then they said, okay, this money did not come into the country. The forms that were completed was a ploy to siphon money out of the country. Mainly the money that left the country was not state money. I think that people have to get correct. What left the country were individuals' monies, but they contravened the exchange regulations of the country.
Okay.
So that money returned.
Okay,
yeah,
but you're clear that the government now is doing it in an anti-corruption drive and that this was all being done. Before I go to Itai, let me just get clarity from you, Nick. Is it clear to you, and can you sort of, you know, can you be absolutely unequivocal about this, that the current government didn't know about this and this was all Mugabe and his cronies?
The best way of putting it across is that the system protected the people that were doing it. And obviously the system was headed by the former president Robert Mugabe. And if nobody could be arrested in Zimbabwe without the president saying so, and nobody could put under squeeze without the president allowing it.
Right.
So that is
okay.
As far as it's concerned.
Okay.
The system was highly tolerant.
Okay, so the system was tolerant of corruption, I guess. Mr. Choto, do you accept that, and do you accept that the new government, as we transition towards these new elections and a better democracy, hopefully, for Zimbabwe, this new government is taking corruption seriously?
I think if I can probably start by addressing the issue of externalization of currency there, I think in legal terms, I think it's plausible to note that there wasn't an act of parliament or statutory instrument actually saying that if you do not bring back your money, then you'll be prosecuted for that. But having viewed that, if you look at the money, I think you've listed about 800-something million. I list about 530-something million to that value that was brought back in Zimbabwe, and that money has not been felt in terms of liquidity to the consumer market of Zimbabwe. So that's a big grey area. In terms of wrestling the current corruption that's prevalent in government, and that's been prevalent in government from 1980 or even before that, I think we've got very little to show off. The people that have been arrested or prosecuted are largely people that I feel have been G40 functionaries, which is telling in itself, because if you look at how the president came into power, it was more or less a contestation of political rivalries within one party. So if we're having selective application of the law, that is detriment to the economy, to the to the fabric of Zimbabwe. And I think the president, in terms of corruption, I think whilst he's signaled the right phrases in terms of what he says, in terms of what he says to the international community, but in terms of what he actually does in the ground, there's very little to show off.
Okay.
And I think that is despicable.
Okay, so Nick, very little to show off, says the man sitting in the Midlands, in London. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that's fair? That, listen, okay, you're saying the right thing and you're doing one or two good things, but there's very little to show off on the grounds?
What the president has shown is his adherence to the principles and tenets of the rule of law. What used to happen in the last dispensation is that people would be arrested and then investigations would take place. But under President Mnangagwa, no matter what crime it is, a crime is investigated, and then if there is enough evidence and enough weight to that evidence for somebody to be prosecuted, people would be arrested. Now, when dockets after investigations have been done, when dockets were being taken to the prosecuting authorities, which is the Prosecutor General, people were not being prosecuted. There was an ambivalence or a reluctance out there to do that. So because of that, that's why the president set up a special prosecuting team to go through these dockets and execute the prosecutions. It's a very short space of time in which you have to change culture, and you have to change also the tolerance threshold for corruption within the system.
For those who say that Mnangagwa is running as he is a candidate in the presidential elections, in the build-up to that election, and railing against as well all the things that he at best stood by and allowed to happen in the past, and at worst was complicit in, is that fair, or is it really just tremendously unfair as Zimbabwe is trying to move forward?
That's very unfair, because every president who has reformed, or every leader that has reformed their country, many times they've come from the system. If you go to Tanzania, if you look at John Pombe Magufuli, John Pombe Magufuli was an MP and a minister from 1989. But he only got his incumbents about 3 years ago, and he reformed the country. If you go to China, the same thing. The person that had been working with Mao since 1940 took over in 1978 as the paramount ruler and transformed China. Whichever country you go to, reform is to come from within.
Okay.
And that is how it works.
Good points and good examples. So Itai, to address that, for those who feel that some of these things are merely cosmetic, or that this might just be a new coat of paint on the same ZANU wall, we have the point from Nick saying whether it's in the anti-corruption drive or in the build-up to those elections, everything else that they're trying to do, essentially, Mnangagwa can't help that he came from the system, but he's trying to do the good thing, and we need to give credit where it's due. Do you accept that?
Yeah, I'll probably be one of the first person to admit this, that his rhetoric has been largely inspirational, and I think he has sent the right signals, even in terms of his international engagement. But what we need to understand is that what an investor doesn't like are promises, because promises can be broken at any time. What an investor likes are changes in the law. Our law has to match the policy. Our policy has to match the law. And I think it's been almost 7 months now. I think, unfortunately, President Mnangagwa has failed to match that rhetoric with demonstrable behavior. Because what we have, even in terms of investment, which he and his government are very proud of, investment commitments or investment intentions that have not actually developed into anything concrete on the ground. The people of Zimbabwe are still queuing for $30. $30 in bond coins, not even in notes, but in bond coins. But he said that in his inauguration speech that he is going to address the fundamental issues of the cash crisis, but he's failed to do that. But one thing that I find that the president could have immediately looked after or taken into position to is his cabinet. If you look at his cabinet right now, it's a recycled list of people that are out of time, out of touch, out of their depth with what is happening in a global economy. And I don't think those people are able to arrest the problem that Zimbabwe has in terms of socio-economic infrastructure, in terms of our fabric, in terms of our macroeconomic stability. So at the very first stage, when there was much hope in a lot of people, the president failed and people lost hope. When people do not have hope in you as a nation, we are almost beginning to, our trajectory is almost failed.
Okay,
because there is no hope and there is no confidence in the government.
So with that in mind, sorry to interrupt you, so with that in mind, given that you're not fully satisfied by what Mnangagwa has done over the past few months, there's an election coming up. Is there anything that the opposition is saying? You're not happy with Mnangagwa's cabinet, for example. Is there anything the opposition is saying that resonates with you, which makes you feel they should have the mandate after July 30th?
In terms of his cabinet, I think the most visible example is the Honourable Minister of Home Affairs, who's Obre Mufofu, who was sent before a parliamentary select committee on mines. They were investigating on what happened in Chiwadza. This is a full minister on one of the great states, on one of the great cabinet positions in government, that walked away from that and refused to answer questions. So that doesn't give credibility at all to the government. That raises a lot of question marks. Are we having a system of patronage? Are we having a system that continuously protects people that are pro-ZANU-PF or pro the president? We have to raise question marks. In terms of what the opposition is saying, there is a lot of pragmatism as far as I've seen. I've looked at all the three manifestos I've looked at three manifestos. I've looked at the ZANU-PF manifesto, I've read the MDC manifesto, and I've read APA's manifesto, Dr. Kosanamo's manifesto. I think there's only manifesto out of those three that actually resonates with me and is more pragmatic and sees sense on how to deliver a socio-economic environment that is applicable to the Zimbabwean people, that raises them out of poverty to the promised land. And that is Dr. Kosanamo's manifesto.
Okay.
It is unfortunate that he's almost a peripheral figure in terms of the electoral challenge right now.
Yeah, interesting, because you still have ZANU-PF and the MDC being the two big parties. Final question to you, Nick. For me,
of course,
I'm almost feeling old here. It's mind-blowing to think of a Zimbabwean election coming up without Robert Mugabe or even Morgan Tsvangirai. I mean, you know, the times have moved on incredibly. So much has changed in the country as well. Coming up to those elections, let me ask you very directly, Nick, are those going to be free and fair elections to give Zimbabwe the best chance at being a healthy democracy?
Thank you very much for a good question. The thing that has held Zimbabwe back, in terms of all those investments and deals signed, what people were waiting for as the benchmark to reform, the evidence that President Mnangagwa's rhetoric is matched by action, is those free and fair elections, whether they're credible, whether Zimbabwe has detoxified its political environment, has detoxified its economic policies through reform. Now, have we reformed? Clearly, we got over 48 entities monitoring our elections, supervising our elections, or rather observing our elections, all accredited, all there. It's all transparent for everyone to see. We've got nothing to hide. People have been accredited to the build up to the elections. They will be there during the elections. They will be there in the post-election period, because we've got nothing to hide. ZEC has interfaced very much with all the political parties. Every week they were meeting. What now is left is the opposition that sees that is going to lose these elections. Has started grandstanding, almost managing their own internal processes or their own internal contestations. Because if, for example, Nelson Chamisa, if he loses, he needs something to go back to his people to say, no, I lost, right, but do not change leadership, okay, because, so Nick, I was cheated. So Nick,
yes. Nick, I got to wrap. But guess what? We're going to have more Zimbabwe election coverage here on the Newsmakers. We're going to invite you back onto the show. And Itai, you as well. It's been a pleasure having both of you on the Newsmakers, Nick Mangwana and Itai Michael Preston Choto. For the moment, I've got to move on, but I thank you sincerely for joining us here on the Newsmakers.
سلام. I protested against compulsory hijab with the girls of the Revolution Street. I've been arrested 3 times. While in Kashan, I realized that authorities were trying to build a case against me. I was arrested with my son.
That was Shaparak Shajarizadeh. She says she's been given a 20-year sentence for taking off her headscarf. Right now in Iran, a woman who shows her hair in public can face anything from a small fine to time behind bars. Shajarizadeh's protest was part of a movement known as White Wednesdays, which encourages women to flout the law and remove their veils. Well, it was started by Iranian women's rights activist Masih Alinejad, and she joins us now from New York. Masih, good to have you on the Newsmakers once more. Did it come as a surprise to you?
Thank you so much.
The 18 years of, I guess, a deferred sentence and 2 years of jail time for Shajarizadeh, and she's left the country now, but the fact that the sentence was so harsh for following your protest, did it come as a surprise to you?
It's a shocking sentence because, you know, she has done nothing wrong except practicing her civil disobedience. She was unhappy to wear compulsory hijab like millions of other women inside Iran, and they don't have any opportunity to protest against compulsory hijab. So she joined the campaign because she found this campaign is you know, a peaceful movement to show her protest against compulsory hijab. And other girls of Revolution Street, those women who protested compulsory hijab, they got 1 year prison, one of them 3 months, and 2 years suspended. But this time, it's 20 years sentence, 18 years suspended, and for 2 years you have to be jailed. By suspended, it means that if you remove your hijab or if you talk about it, then you have to go back to jail for 18 months. And it's really scary and backward law. It surprised many other people in Iran.
Right. Let me ask you if you feel maybe that the protests need to be toned down, not because the principle is wrong, but because of the harshness of the sentence, maybe you feel, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing this right now. Is that a factor at all?
That's a good question. That's a good question because, look, when you look at the history, then you see a lot of women, you know, they sacrifice their life to change discriminatory laws. My responsibility is to make awareness about the situation and the risk. Like I myself in Iran, when I was 19 years old, I got involved in student activities and I got into prison. I became a journalist and I criticized the government. That I got a lot of attacked by the politicians inside Iran. So I was forced to flee the country. All this happening to me and other women inside Iran, it's just because of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I think it's better to ask them to oppress their own people rather than asking women like me, Shaparak, and millions of other women to stop protesting, you know, the backward laws and these oppressors inside Iran.
Okay, you say the ball is in their court. Now, as you know, we wanted you to have a discussion or debate with Mahbouba Abbas Kholizadeh. I know you didn't want to appear on a panel with her, and we respect that. She's also anti the compulsory hijab that's imposed in Iran, but she disagrees with you on tactics. We spoke with her a little bit earlier on via email. She sent us some of her notes, right? And she said compulsory hijab is harsh. The sentence was extremely harsh. It was an unacceptable sentence, as any sentence would be. But she believes, and I pose this to you because she talks about you very directly, she believes that the reason the sentence was so harsh was that the White Wednesdays movement, led by you, Masih Alinejad, has added to its campaign for women's rights a call for regime change, and that there's a conflation of women's rights with regime change, which has led to the state looking at women's rights activism through a security lens. It's an existential thing, right? So a security lens and using more severe tactics to repress activists. So Mahbouba Abbas Kholizadeh is saying she agrees with you. The sentence is harsh, compulsory hijab is wrong, but White Wednesdays might be making it worse because you're calling for regime change. Do you respect that argument at all?
Not at all. First of all, I respect millions of women who participate in a peaceful movement, and we have to understand that they are mature enough and they know which way and how to protest compulsory hijab. Nobody can make decision for them, not me, not other people. They are the women inside Iran. They are aware of the risk, and they know what kind of imprisonment or pressure they're gonna, face from the oppressors. I'm gonna give you an example. Shima Babai, she's only 24 years old. She joined White Wednesday's campaign, and she lives in Iran. When she got interrogated by people like Mahbubeh saying that, why you want to overthrow the regime, why you're doing this, why you're just joining a campaign which has been, supported from Masih Alinejad outside Iran. So that means you're working for Masih Alinejad, and you have to admit. You know what she said? She said that I am not working for Masih. This is Masih Alinejad is working for me, because I don't have any media inside Iran. And she published that on her Instagram page. And she is one of the brave women that I think you have to refer, that she knows what she wants. She said that I want, this is 21st century, and I want religion to be separated from politics, from my personal life, from my choice. And I want the Islamic Republic of Iran to understand that this is the time that you have to stop, taking my body like a hostage and writing your own ideology on my body. So okay. I am just giving them a platform.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, Masih, good to have you on the show. Hope to have you on the show again in the not too distant future. Masih Alinejad joining us there from New York. And that's all for this edition of The Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. You can check out more of our stories on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Remember to like, follow and subscribe. Next time, Ethiopia and Eritrea sign a peace deal. Is their decades-long conflict finally over? Until then, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.